proper recording here so I get this. And I wanted to welcome everyone back or to the first time to AI Insiders from AI Marketers Guild. Um, as anyone who's been here before knows, these are very participatory sessions, and so there are a few things. We'll hear some thoughts from our guest speaker Shiv, and Shiv Singh and I go back quite a ways from when I mean probably nearly 20 years now at this point when we were both early on and trying to figure out what this wave of social media meant and looking at these early waves of social and mobile, and there's some people in the room like Steve Sarner and Chris Ewer and others who I know go back to this era when we like hang out at blogger lounges and try to get any brand's attention for like why they should have a blog or be on MySpace and weird stuff like that. But Shiv's been doing pioneering work for decades on the agency side, brand side, uh, uh, now very deep in the AI space. Normally, I would use this opportunity because I do this a lot on different calls where I reach behind me and I hold up my AI Market for Dummies book and I plug this and I show how happy I am, reading this thing. Um, Being on the road in Idaho this week, I neglected to bring that and probably couldn't have fit it because I have so many layers of clothing. There we go, Marketing with AI for Dummies, and a must-read book. But it is great. I will say that Shiv entrusted me as uh, being his technical editor on this project, and so my name is in the back of the book, and it was a lot of fun getting to read this and also spend a lot of time because I was going over every word of this book and saying, wait, like is this exactly what happened? Is this like, are there any other details about this case study that should be in here? And so I went down a lot of rabbit holes reading this book, and I'm way smarter for it. But Shiv, want to share a little bit about, well, who you are, what you're up to right now with AI Trailblazers and your book and newsletter, everything else. A few highlights that you might have, what marketers should know about this. I don't have to worry about tailoring this segment for marketers since that's what you've been doing your whole career. And then, yeah, I'm excited to ask a few questions, but by all means, as people here have questions, thoughts, like I'm excited for everyone to chime in.
Sounds great. Firstly, thank you for having me on, David, and so good to meet everybody. I'm going to admit, you were talking about how long we've known each other, and I suddenly started to feel very old, and I was like, oh gosh, years are flying by. Um, so just for context, a bit about myself, and then I'll talk a little bit about the book, and then I think it'll be a lot more fun because we're all marketers, we're all peers that we just have a conversation and ask each other questions and take it from there. Uh, Built my career in marketing, spent a decade on the agency side at Razorfish, which was when I first got to know David in the early 2000s. Uh, then ran digital marketing for Pepsico, spent many years at Visa in senior marketing roles as well as innovation roles, reporting to the CMO and the Chief Innovation Officer. And then most recently, I was the Chief Marketing and Experience Officer at LendingTree, which is a very large financial services marketplace, huge performance marketing brand, but also does a bit of brand building as well. This is my third book that I've written. The first was Social Media Marketing for Dummies, which did very well. Seven language translations, four editions. The second one was on fighting misinformation. And a year ago or a year and a half ago, I stepped back and got both incredibly excited and incredibly frightened over what I had been observing in the AI space. And I should qualify this by saying my second book, which came out in 2018, had 6 chapters. The sixth chapter was all about how AI was had the risk of taking away our jobs. So I've been sort of thinking about it for a while. Um, and and I started thinking and started talking to a lot of marketers and decided to write this book. And Wiley, the publisher, was kind enough to say, yes, we'll do it with you and we can make it a part of the Dummy series. And so I spent the better part of a year interviewing nearly 100 marketers, technologists, agency leaders, and ad tech people in the process of writing this book. Uh, and then I was fortunate to be able to partner with David and a few others on the creation of it, which then the book came out in October, and now I speak and advise around it. Um, I don't know what else to say about myself, but I think that's more than enough. I'd rather talk about AI and the exciting opportunities and challenges ahead. Just to tee up the conversation, I thought maybe I'd share a couple of themes that I've observed from, my own experiences over the years and what I learned through the course of writing the book as thought starters for the conversation. The first, I would say, is all the hype around I believe very strongly that it's all massively underhyped. Um, which might be hard to believe or to conjecture. But when I see how quickly the technology is advancing, how much it puts Moore's law to shame in terms of the pace of the innovation, how dramatic of an effect it can have on our lives and our children's lives and future generations, how much of a general purpose technology it is, where it's a foundation technology that affects every field, every discipline, every job role, and how dramatically different it is to any other innovation that has come before. I think it's trivializing the potential and the risks when we compare it to the mobile phone or to the internet or to the television. Take your pick of technological innovations, because we're dealing with something that is truly on the cusp of being on par with human capability. And we've never experienced or witnessed that before. Every previous innovation extended us or was allowing us to create or distribute or uh, receive information, knowledge, help us build things. Here, it's sitting side by side with us and doing that with increasingly equal proficiency. And it's just a matter of time before, as Sam Altman wrote in a paper that he published just on Sunday, it's just 2 or 3 years before a single human being with an AI agent by his or her side that the person knows how to use well will have all the knowledge of humankind put together. That's his words, not mine. Granted, he's raising funding and is motivated to speak pretty highly of what's going on in the AI space. But even if a third of that comes to pass, that's pretty dramatic. And I do believe at least a third will. So that's one big theme. The other
And
theme, yeah. Or we can pause.
Shiv, if you don't mind, just since Adam often has timely comments, I let him strike while it's
I have
hot.
comments. So let
Let's do
me
it.
let me let me be both contrarian to a bold statement you made, but also violently agree with it. You said it's hard that it's underhyped, but then you just gave a quote about Altman talking about a new form of humanity. I think the contrarian point of view to what you just said about that it's underhyped might be to say, how could it possibly be underhyped? Everyone's like caught up in the hype cycle. But let me also just sort of give you an opportunity to push back on that, and or to maybe, I think what maybe you're saying is like, people may be jumping too far ahead in their hype, and they're not even appreciating what's, just around the corner. And or like just how powerful it really can be, or maybe just like kind of expand on that, because I do feel like some people are like, oh, it's going to be this, and there's going to be this ChatGPT next to you, or there is going to be this interactive but heavily agentic UX that happens or something like that. But then maybe people miss the fact that server side, there's going to be a set of agentic, rubrics and protocols and things like that. And we actually will be able to get stuff more done. And people just don't even appreciate and have underhyped the insanity by which, a lot of that can happen with even less intervention. I would just love for you to expand upon the fact that you think it's underhyped, because my knee-jerk reaction is to say you're full of it, but then I have deep respect for everything you've said so far and clearly what you've written. So I'm sure you have nuance.
Thank you, Adam, for the kind qualifier. Um, so I think there are a few things. So first and foremost, in the pure, whether it's fake or real, it doesn't matter how it gets to the end state. But the capability, and take your pick of subjects, GRE exam, law exam, the most recent O1 model from OpenAI, which was formerly known as Strawberry. These perform at a greater level of proficiency than 95% of human beings that exist. The O1 model that recently came out, scored an 83%, I think, on the qualifying exam for the International Mathematics Olympiad, which is incredibly mind-blowingly hard to get. Like, I think it's fewer than 100 people score at that level. So the pure knowledge capability there is at a level beyond, I think, most of our imagination, with the fascinating caveat that each and every one of us on the Zoom call have access to it now. And that's mind-blowing. It's truly like an exoskeleton, or having superhuman powers for us to take advantage. So the capability is very much there, and it's only increasing dramatically. If you compare GPT-3 to 3.5 to 4 to 401, and that's just in the OpenAI family. You can look at the other large language models. The advancement is increasingly getting mind-blowing. Now, on this tension between overhyped and underhyped, there are also a lot of folks who sometimes think, well, it hallucinates, it has stupid average answers to questions, because it doesn't have a point of view. It lacks creativity, imagination, ingenuity, all those pieces. What I would say to that is there are a few things. Firstly, most of us human beings, if you don't mind me disparage our species for a moment, most of us human beings also hallucinate at times. We use other words for that. And we also aren't exactly mind-blowingly creative like a Pablo Picasso most of the time as well. But what matters even more, though, is if you know how to use the tools, and it's a misnomer to even call it the tools, what you get out of it is significantly greater. But you won't get those benefits if you ask one simple question and get one simple answer back and say, see, that thing's useless and a waste of time. It is like learning a new language. It is like befriending an alien from another planet. You have to put in the time, but the more time you put in, the more incredible the benefits. And we've never talked about, for example, cures to cancer with enthusiasm in the medical profession as we do now, because of what this thing or this technology is starting to allow us to do. So I just thought I'd put that out there. Another theme to consider, and don't hesitate to raise your hand, interrupt me.
Yeah, we got one more hand raiser here. So, Karen.
Oh, great.
I have two thoughts about it. The one thing is that information is not knowledge. to have a lot of information does not signify knowledge. If you're talking about solving certain problems like cancer, for example, then I can see AI being incredibly useful because it can iterate a lot of information and come up with new insights. But to say that information is knowledge, we have all kinds of knowledge, like, the Buddha's Four Noble Truths. Everyone knows about it, but why doesn't anyone act on it? The fact that you have the information is not signify that there is knowledge there.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that. I think it's a good point to raise and for us to discuss. I'm not saying that AI is about information alone. It is about creating net new knowledge as well. Now, and with one big qualifier, which is how it does that is questionable. And with the large language model specifically, we as we as society, but more specifically the academics in the AI space and the scientists at a lot of these AI companies are just about beginning to understand how exactly it works. So they've created something that they don't know how it truly works. So I want to put that out there as well. But to the question of information versus knowledge, something I unpacked quite a bit in my second book is what happened with AlphaGo and Lee Sedok back in 2017. So for those who don't know, uh, uh, Go is this incredibly complex board game. It's if you think chess is hard, Go is considered infinitely hard because you can literally have an infinite number of moves. Incredibly popular in East Asia. Back in 2017, the Google DeepMind team with support from Larry Page and Sergey Brin, challenged the best or one of the best Go players in the world to a game. This was, like those chess games where human plays computers. Larry Page and Sergey Brin flew to South Korea to watch the game live. It was screened on national TV. There are a couple of documentaries about it. And AlphaGo, the computer, beat the human being. So that's fine, not too surprising. However, what made it interesting was, we've always worked with the assumption that these computers, and especially these role-playing games or these board games, they look at the history of every game created and therefore know every possible move and know what to do in a given moment because of processing power. What Lee Sedol saw in the second game, Move 37, which was then validated by other leading Go players and a lot of AI experts too, was seeing AlphaGo, the computer, make a move that he had never seen being made before, that on the surface appeared to be a mistake, but in hindsight was, in his own words, mind-blowing creativity and ingenuity that he had never seen before in the history of humankind and didn't think anyone could even imagine that way. How it got to that is still being unpacked, but I share that to say that when it comes to the creation of net new knowledge, it's still, some people form on different sides of the debate. How it's doing is hard to comprehend at times, but there's something very new and very different going on here. Just my 2 cents to add to the mix.
I just want to make one quote from Noam Chomsky, and what he says is that, human beings are able to create something with very little information, whereas AI needs a lot of information in order to come up with what it does. So the nature of how humans acquire knowledge or have a vision into something new is completely different. What a machine can iterate, and humans cannot compete with machines' iteration to come up with different ways. And if you want to call that innovation, yes, it's certainly amazing what it does, but I really don't think that it's always a tool. It's not, I mean, obviously it has a lot of ramifications into the workplace and what you're going to do in the future. But I also think it's a mistake to equate that to the human knowledge or how we operate in the world.
I respectfully disagree, but it's a good conversation, and maybe we continue it over drinks if we're in the same
Okay.
city at some point.
Nice, and we'll see where this goes. And I'd love to hear from Chris. Welcome back, Chris.
Thanks so much. I'm in the car again, unfortunately. Hey, Shiv, good to see you again. Hey, talking about AlphaGo brought me to another thought, and also looking at Jeff Livingston's post this morning on LinkedIn about the rote nature of people still thinking about AI and marketing as they were in 2022 or, a couple of years ago. I'm wondering, what is the equivalent apparent mistake, brilliantly creative move from AlphaGo that is possible here with marketing? Is there any that you've seen that goes beyond content generation or image? And what might you posit that might become?
Yeah, great question, Chris. So, two thoughts to consider. The first is that, and don't mind, I'm going to speak at a metaphor level, and then I'll get into one or two examples. But I've been married, I don't know, 18, 17 years. So I'm going to talk about dating, but it's a dated conversation. But whenever I would date, and it's not like I did a lot of dating, but whenever any of us would date, um, you have a first good date, and that's what serves as the foundation of a second date and a third date and being in a relationship and I don't know, maybe getting married and having kids and before you know it, being a grandparent. When it comes to AI, and this applies very much in the context of marketing as well, the first two dates are bound to go badly. And and you instinctually want to say, oh my God, this thing is overhyped. I don't want to waste too much time on it. I have a million other things on my plate to do. We don't have to stress or worry about this. But that's actually the exact wrong thing to do because that third or fourth date is when things dramatically click and can change how you do your work and how you accomplish jobs and tasks. So metaphorically, I want to put that there. And as an industry, we're sort of in our first or second date, just so you know, that's how I see about it, which is why the examples are sort of more trivial. However, having said that, I'll talk about two specific examples. One is how many of you paid attention to the and it's tough for me to talk about this because I'm a former Pepsico marketer. But how many of you saw the Coke advertising this winter? They do an annual Christmas campaign. So they do an annual Christmas campaign. It's typically with polar bears, and in the history of the Pepsi and Coke wars, they would typically win the winter because they just know how to own the Christmas and the holiday season better than Pepsi. Pepsi would win the
I mean,
summer.
like Coke did help popularize Santa Claus.
Um, uh, well, with that in mind as well. So what Coke decided to do this winter was they created their annual piece of advertising, and this is a big deal for them, and they spend huge amounts of media around it, all through video AI. So it's an AI video, the ad that ran everywhere. Not surprisingly, many of us in the marketing and the creative industries threw up our hands in the air and said it wasn't human, it lacked emotion, it was fake, it was inauthentic, it missed the boat when it came to what Coke really stands for. There were all those usual criticisms, or not usual, but serious criticisms, the ones you'd expect. Arguably, you look at a piece of advertising and you could say, yeah, I agree with that. It does lack a certain humanness to it. However, when the ad was tested with System One, which is one of the top ad testing tools out there, it actually performed incredibly well. The ad itself took a lot less time and a lot less money to create than their traditional campaigns. And I know that for a fact because I was involved in the Pepsi ads, and they even talked about it publicly. I share this because this is an example of where you start to see the changes happen. And using AI in ad creation gets more normalized. And the implications for it, because Coke would spend at least a couple of million on the creation of an ad like that, and then tens of millions of dollars running it. Just think about how the agency is impacted, how the team is impacted, how different skills are needed. So that change is already starting to happen. Another example, and while we may say, content can be a little basic and a very simple use case, but if you look at what HP has been able to do using Adobe Firefly Bulk, HP, their marketing function is a marketing machine because they have so many products, they operate in so many countries around the world, they have so many specifications, they have so much advertising running that they spend a lot of time producing ad creative, because by market, by spec, by language, you just need like tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of variations. What would normally take months for them to do, all of a sudden became a few weeks, and in some cases, even a few days, using the AI technology, because it could do some decisioning and then some production itself. So yes, it's still just content, but super, super incredible in terms of its efficiency, which again, and this is both a positive and a negative, it just has all kinds of implications for human beings involved and difficult questions of job displacement. So I'll pause there, but those are two examples that come to mind of what we're seeing right now.
So, okay, so now, like getting from there, yeah, I also was, yeah, I also thought what I mean, you had a great piece on your predictions for the coming year and how these AI advances have implications for marketers. Um, yeah, I think going from there to where a lot of people in the room are, like, one of your predictions was the new DIY era of marketing is here, right? And so, and you mentioned Adobe Firefly as part of this, and some of the capabilities here, and that things like this that are accessible to us all. We don't even need to be part of a big creative or media agency or something, to tap into a lot of these. I mean, uh, you know, uh, one one question I'll ask is like for those of us that have like a 1 or 3 or 10 person shop, like, I mean, how much do you see, do you really see this as leveling the playing field? How much of an advantage does this give? Does it give equal advantages to the big and the small? Like where do you see this playing out?
I I see it as having a massive influence, and I'll begin by saying that, for those of you who work or have worked in mid to large size marketing functions, um, I've been focusing a little bit on the content and the creative end, but every sub function or sub activity from strategy and planning to insight generation to creative to media planning and buying to analytics to SEO, SEM, you name it, is all being dramatically affected. And the book is organized by that, what's happening within each sub function and what you can do. So that's just one broad theme. Specifically, I think we're on the cusp of what can potentially be an incredible do-it-yourself era for marketers. Because all of a sudden, each and every one of us have those superhuman or exoskeleton type skills. Two simple examples I'll give. One is if you look at Google, and and that's the largest, advertising platform in the world, $168 billion in annual revenue from advertising. They now have their tools, whether it's AdWords or some of the other ad tools that are increasingly AI driven. So if you look at Google's Performance Max tool or Meta's Advantage Plus or Amazon's Ad Advantage, I think tool it's called, all you need to do is give it the assignment the way you would give another marketer or a performance marketer on a team. And it will choose the ad copy. It'll figure out the ad creative depending on what type of ad it wants to run. It will run the campaign. It'll create and disassemble segments. It will measure the results. It'll optimize it. It will choose what should go towards search, what should go towards the display network, what should sit on YouTube, how much of the spend, and it'll come back with the results for you. And it's doing all of that. Now, we can have a good debate on how good it is. I would say it's okay, works well in some cases, works not so well in others, and I've used it quite a bit. But you just have to fast forward a year from now or a year and a half from now to know that it is getting significantly better every day. So that's in the realm of performance marketing, the level of automation. What it allows for is, someone like me who's an independent operator now. I don't have time to do a lot of Google advertising spend, and because one, I don't have the time, but the other is, I'm getting a little rusty with my Google advertising skill sets. It's doing all of that for me, and it's soon will get to a point where it's on par with what a human performance marketer is able to do. And when that happens, it becomes a more level playing field between a mid-size or large-size advertiser that can have teams of folks doing this and an independent operator. It's Performance Max. That's one of it. And every year it gets better. So go ahead.
Well, I mean, I was gonna ask, like, because you started mentioning, some of the, like, whose jobs will AI take, and like, who in this room or other rooms should be most afraid of something like that happening? Like, there've got to be some losers, right? Like some people losing out when, like, as this happens.
Yeah, so I'll answer this on two levels. So first, in corporations, it's functions, unfortunately, like marketing, sales, finance, and HR are the first ones losing. And we're already seeing this in the Bay Area among the tech giants. Their revenue is climbing, their profits have never been higher, and they're laying off people. And they're doing that because one, they want to invest in data centers, and two, in AI PhDs, and because they think they just don't need the folks anymore. So we're on a functional level, we're seeing that change. On a skill level within marketing, it is affecting every sub-function, but it's not a binary choice, and hopefully never will be. It'll be the folks who know how to partner with the AI, use it as AI, with the digital labor or AI agents, and can play the roles of, uh, taste curators, fact checkers, strategists, and orchestrators will be the ones that will have, better longer term jobs and can be translators to the AI versus the ones that don't do that and keep it at arm's length. And it's whether that's an SEO, SEM, marketing strategy, creative, insights, you pick your team or your role, it applies. Same with analytics.
Great. Thanks. And we have our next question or comment. Elena.
Hi, Shiv, good to see you. I remember our days on Visa. For me, I hear what you're saying about these tools being great, coming from the agency side and now working at a client where we don't have a huge marketing team, but having that marketing background to understand how to use these tools is great. But I still see there's this gap where if I'm a small or medium-sized business, if I don't have that marketing background, there's a real knowledge gap to see how these tools or how I engage with these tools to help me. Where do you think that gap is going to be minimized, or how does that gap get minimized? Is it going to come from the Adobes? Are they going to really dig into those, giving people that kind of background and knowledge, or is it, you've just got to figure it out for yourself?
Yeah, good to see you again, Elena, and great question. So I'd say that there are a few things going on. Companies like Adobe, they're doing a lot of great work in integrating AI into the application approach, sort of as feature extensions to what they already do, whether that's in Photoshop, Illustrator, you name it. That's what's going on there. Uh, for smaller business, what we're just starting to see, and this is where we have to plan for what the world will be like 12 months from now, because that's how we train up and get ready for it. Uh, there are more companies surfacing, and I'd say right now they're not great, but I think it's going to get a lot better, where they're basically AI agent companies that say, give us a brief, and we, as your virtual AI agent, will create your marketing calendar for you, point us to your content repository and your brand guidelines, and we'll create 50 social media posts and we'll provide recommendations. Or if you like, we'll actually start running ad buys to boost them when they go live. So tools like that are truly AI first are starting to surface. And that's where it's going to change a lot, because you can have a two-person company, a 10-person company that doesn't have the time to have a marketer on the team or a full-time marketer will be able to use these tools. And I'll just look for an example of them. I forget the name, but I'll pull it up. But we're seeing much more of that. Another area where we're seeing that very directly is in the insight space. So, instead of traveling across the country to do focus groups or not being able to afford to do it, you can use synthetic panels. And, whether it's from the big players like Morning Consult or the small ones like Evidenza is one of them, they're getting pretty damn good um, at being that complement and helping small teams where you don't even have full-time marketers.
Right. Thank you, Shiv.
Shiv, can I ask you a question? I just jumped in late.
Please, Daisy.
Hey, David. Long time no see. So I think about it like food, organic food versus fast food, right? So when fast food came out, everyone was like, spam, I need that canned ham. And, moms were like, oh, I don't have a job anymore. Like, it's spam every day. But now organic food is, very expensive, farm to table. Like, who wants to eat canned ham when you can have organic? And I know this is a really long way to ask you this question, but do you see bigger brands not using AI and still using the human touch to differentiate themselves, whereas like smaller brands who use like AI all day, every day, and have like no humans on their team?
I If you don't mind me saying, I think the bigger brands that don't lean heavily into AI are going to lose out dramatically. Because, another example of a different type of use case is, you know, at least I grew up in a world that when it came to segmentation, we'd have maybe 8, maybe 10, at the most 15 customer segments. They translate into, advertising targets, media targets, etc. And that's how we would put campaigns out there. On the product side, you'd have a single ideal customer profile even. Now with the AI tools and technologies, you can literally have a million customer segments of one person in each of them. And just think about that for a moment, what that allows you to do. It allows you to do personalization on a scale that you've never been able to do before, but cheaply or relatively cheaply as well. It allows you to understand people not based on the more generic commonalities in the segment, but really on those edge insights that really make them who they are, and talk to them in that true one-to-one fashion that has been, the holy grail of marketing, but go beyond knowing when their birthday is and sending them a happy birthday email. So whether you're a small company or a very large company, there are huge potential benefits and companies that don't embrace that. And I talk to a lot of marketers and a lot of companies and advise and consult. Um, the smart ones are already seeing those benefits.
I don't know. I think I agree to disagree because, Louis Vuitton and Atelier, Handmade, right? They're not going to do programmatic because they're not selling software.
I think it's if I may, I think that's using the paradigm of the way we know the world operates today. And along those lines, it reminds me, I'll never forget, I did a lot of agency work for Chanel in the day. And in one of my early meetings with Chanel, this was Midtown Manhattan, 9 West, top floor overlooking Central Park, and I was sort of in awe of the entire thing. And we did our, introductory presentation on what we were going to do. And the senior VP at Chanel, I mean, I was, a kid at the time, was sitting next to me, and she put her hand on my arm and said, "My dear, what you don't understand is it's it's not about when get this right. It's not about when Chanel can be ready for the internet. It's more about when the internet is ready for Chanel," which was such a Chanel type comment to say. And needless to say, 2 years later, they went all in massively. Their business can't survive today without their e-commerce spend. That stuff is going to happen in this world too. Depending on industry, depending on your company, it may happen soon. It may take time. You may not feel the need or the pressure, but you know, the, it's that William Gibson thing. The future is already here. It's just unevenly distributed, and there'll be a great sense of urgency with some companies and some industries than others. So that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah. So, yeah, other questions? We've got about 10 minutes left. I just want to hear what else is uh, top mind for you. Corey, is there anything, you had some comments in the chat, anything you wanted to follow up with?
Yeah, I think I'm just like I've been diving deep into building my own tools, right? I work in marketing ops, so I've been building tools to automate processes and just make a lot of things happen. And I started building a like internal strategy consultant for our team, basically taking all of our strategy docs, our brand guidelines, all that kind of stuff, and creating a custom gem in Gemini because that's what we have a license for, and showing our team like, okay, this thing understands our strategy and understands what we're capable of and has our historical performance data. So if you're thinking through a campaign or an individual idea or you're writing a brief, use this as a like starter or co-pilot. And we seem to be working pretty well with that.
Yeah, no, that's great. And that's one of the best ways to start. And this is the thing I'd emphasize. Many of the pieces I'm talking about, we're going to see come to life in the next 18 months. But the fundamentals are, Corey, exactly what you hit on, which is whenever you have a business problem that's interesting, or even a personal life question, think about AI as your thought partner. have ChatGPT and Perplexity or Claude open, depending on the need, and get into a 5 or 10 minute conversation with it and see what comes back. You know, pay attention to how you prompt, use those prompt engineering techniques. Um, in the book, I have a whole bunch of examples, but when you use it right, you'll suddenly realize, oh my gosh, this thing is it's like a magic potion for whatever I'm doing, and it can help me in unique ways. And that's a foundational way to start, and it's worth taking advantage of. Just to give you 2 or 3 other examples, anytime I get a contract from anybody for whatever the activity may be, I put it into, and I use the paid version of ChatGPT and have data sharing off. I put it into ChatGPT and ask it to tell me which uh, 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 is it me or is it the person that I'm contracting with that is getting the upper hand in this relationship? And if I want to negotiate, how should I go back and negotiate? I was negotiating with someone for some marketing work, and I realized I probably didn't do that great a job with it. And this was happening all over email. I put the entire chain in ChatGPT and said, take a look at this, tell me where I did well and where I should do something differently in the future. I was creating a deck for a big presentation. Um, and it was a board level presentation. I created it. You guys know how the story ends. I put it into ChatGPT, again, paid version, the more sophisticated one. I said, play the role of this type of board member and described it very well. And I said, now critically analyze it and ask me a series of questions and tell me what I'm missing. So those are sort of basic use cases, but incredibly helpful already. And I can tell you when I prompted right, I'm not getting cliched average answers. I'm getting really valuable insights that help.
Huh. It's like Corey's comment in the chat, right? Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's great.
good ROI on your ChatGPT subscription.
Awesome. Yeah.
Um,
Go ahead.
yeah. No, I was just going to see what other questions, things were coming up from the community while we have you here.
I just want to make a comment on what Shiv just said. So your ability to ask the right type of questions, that's your creativity. That's what's going to differentiate how you interact and how you get something out of the machine. So humans are always going to be center stage because of how they interact and their own curiosity of how they want to deal and what they want to get out of the machine.
I think that's very much so without a doubt, it's a skill and it's worth investing time and effort in. And I covered quite a bit in the book. The other piece, though, just to put out there is as we see AI agents doing more multi-step decisioning, there'll be more activities that don't even require humans at all. And it'll be for us to think about what role and where we want to play. Now, we can fight that. And in some cases, it'll make a lot of sense to fight that because, hey, we want to be people first. We want to privilege human beings. But in other instances, it may not even matter or why should it? So it really depends.
Well, so so Shiv, like what beyond like the chat GPTs and stuff, I will ask, are there any tools, technologies, anything you've been dabbling with lately that you're just most excited about?
So for me, it's so firstly at a fundamental level, it's GPT-4o because of the advanced reasoning and chain of thought capability, which allows you to really unpack and see how the decisioning and the thinking or the fake thinking rather is happening. I've also been spending, in terms of LLMs, a lot of time in DeepSeek because it's trained partly on OpenAI, which is amusing, but also on synthetic data. And then it doesn't use humans in the loop. It uses its own AI to check and verify how good its responses are. So it's just fascinating to see that. Um, I've been playing with a lot of AI agent technology. So, on the B2B side, one is InstaLily, who I advise, and basically they automate a whole series of customer service and product tasks through layers and layers of AI agents involved. Another that I've been helping with a bit and I've been playing around with are these guys, which is, I just put in the chat, which is focused on financial services. And it's sort of, it helps, it sort of plays the role to do all the content creation for you. The other one, and these guys need to work on the name. And don't say I say that. Is Avanza, and I'm spelling it wrong, otherwise I'd have put it in the chat. But I'm super excited about the synthetic panel space. Just a moment, let me just find it, because I think it's worth just noodling with. But that's another area. And then it might seem a little bizarre, but I've been spending a lot of time in 11 Labs because I'm been fascinated about when you have the voice layer on top of this, what it does as well.
And I just want to ask quickly, because you talked about like not data sharing in the paid chat GPT, and you talked about DeepSeek. And I know we don't have a ton of time here, but are you more cautious with anything that you put into DeepSeek?
I absolutely. I put very little. So, all those chat GPT use cases I talked about, like contracts and board presentations, I'm not doing that with DeepSeek. No, not at all. Uh, I I I don't trust their data privacy policies. Look, now arguably, and this is a frightening thing, is OpenAI significantly better? Who's to know? I mean, the New York Times has a court case against them for stealing content, but it's still within U.S. jurisdiction. So it gives me a bit more confidence, I would say.
It's that, yeah, the New York Times.
What if you install DeepSeek on private servers? Is that then still a concern?
No, that's definitely better. The only thing is then you're probably using a slightly older version of DeepSeek. But what I would say is, and I didn't really, I found that company. This is another example. This is the company Avinza, which is doing synthetic panels. What we didn't talk about much is, in the long run, open weight large language models, which have some open source elements where they're exposing a bit more of their inner workings, I think will win. And we will trust those a lot more because whether it's us or third-party experts can see the makings of them. So, and that's where Llama is in that category from Meta. That's where DeepSeek actually is. Some of Google's Gemini LLMs are open weight and open source, but not all of them.
Yeah, well, Shiv, I know we're at time here. Thank you so much for joining all of us. For anyone who missed the newsletter, it's back in the chat. Make sure to share this in the community. And yeah, welcome to stay connected and keep sharing your thoughts with us. And we look forward to keep learning from you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And for all the insightful, thought-provoking questions. Great to be talking to you all. And David, thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. Good to see you, Shiv.
Yeah, cheers. Bye.